All right, Jim, I have an idea for you on a sales meeting with a follow-up component to it. And the goal of this sales meeting with all your people around the conference room table there is to have them actually write down, identify and write down this column here, which is their high payoff activities. And those activities are the activities that make the organization the most amount of money to cover costs. See, it came from when I was down there riding along, and then you and I had this conversation that Steve just keeps selling tools. And so that's a low payoff activity, but for some reason he just keeps doing it. And Cindy just wants to drop off pads of paper and calendars, and her sales calls are more of a social event. So how do you actually get her to sell and not just going for a social event? Well, have them identify their high payoff activities right there at the conference room table and let them know that you're going to review these in their one-on-ones. All right. If they don't buy the concept, the details don't matter. This is just a detail. So what's the concept behind a high payoff activity? And the concept is how it relates to the business aspect of running a business. Start here. I'm not saying you haven't done this already or done pieces of this. This is just an idea, and yeah, I've just made up all these numbers. Let's just say your operating costs are, your total operating costs, labor makes up 39% of your operating costs. And building makes up 25% of your operating costs. Admin, 20%. Advertising and promotion maybe makes up 8% of your operating costs. And, all others, buying paper and computers and stuff makes up 8%. So if you haven't shared these, go ahead and share these numbers, these actual numbers with your people. Here's why. Because you are really moving them towards what do you need to be selling to cover those costs. See, what we need to be selling, all you wonderful people around the table here, are brakes, because brakes makes up 40% of our income that cover those costs. Suspension makes up 24% of the income that covers those costs. Radiators make up 11% of the income that cover those costs. Filters make up 10% of the income that cover those costs. This right here, these four categories right here, makes up 85% of the income that covers those costs. That's why these are critical categories. So when you're on a sales call, these are the categories that you're talking about. This 15% up here, those are add-ons. Yeah, I get it. The guy that buys brakes also buys bulbs, right? But if you go on a sales call and all you do is talk about bulbs or batteries and you walk out, that was not a good sales call. Every single sales call has to involve one of these four categories right here, because that is how we cover our costs. So, what are your high payoff activities that generate that 85%? One is hunting new clients. When I say new clients, I mean hunting new clients that can buy brakes, suspension, radiators, or filters. If you're trying to find new clients that can buy upholstery items, that can buy tools, that can buy, top-end engine stuff or gears or, rubber items like hood bumpers and pedals and that kind of stuff, just know that is not a high payoff activity. So if you come into my office saying, hey, Jim, I need help. I need help selling a brand new client one of these, I don't even want to hear that conversation. If you want help selling a new client, you had better be diving into conversations around brakes, suspensions, radiators, and filters, and you better be doing it right away and real quick. I get it. This is nice. This is just gravy, but this is the meat. And so if you want help with a new client, you want the meat. And this is the meat. Brakes, suspension, radiators, and filters. So hunting as it relates to these four categories. Another high payoff activity, there's one, is talking to decision makers. Going into, if all you did was go into any customer and drop off a pad of paper and a calendar, and you did not talk to a decision maker, that was not a high payoff activity. I get that. So if you go into any customer for any sales call, you better be talking about brakes, suspension, radiators, and filters. Now, if you haven't done that, don't walk out until you have conversations on one of those four. If you're not prepared to have conversations on one of those four, don't go in until you are prepared to have conversations somehow on one of those four. But while you're on your sales call, have one of these four categories on your mind at all time. You're going to get to it. And what makes when you say talking to a decision maker is someone who can buy from you right now. Not necessarily going to give you an order right now or want to give you an order right now, but if they made the decision, they could actually give you an order right now. If they can't give you an order right now or don't have the power to do that, they are not a decision maker. It could be another teacher at the school. Yeah, wonderful people. They do a great job. But if they can't make a decision to buy something, that is not a high payoff activity. If all you do is talk with some of the front end help, a coordinator up front, or someone who helps somebody else and can actually have the power to buy something right now, that is not a high payoff activity. Just know, have those conversations if you want, but on that sales call, and pretty darn quick, you better be having a conversation with a decision maker who can actually buy something in one of these 4 categories. Another high payoff activity is some kind of a customer service type of thing, maybe solving some kind of a problem. Another high payoff activity might be reviewing numbers. But here's what you're after. You're not out to review numbers just to see the total dollars sold. You want to know how you're going to sell more brakes, suspension, radiators, and filters. That's what the purpose of reviewing numbers is. If you're looking at reviewing numbers to see what else you can sell that we don't have, I'm not interested. This whole circle matters to me. Jim, matters to me. I'm you. This whole circle matters to me. If you want to talk about this stuff right here, yeah, we'll do it if I have time. If you want my attention, you better dive into a conversation on brakes, suspension, radiators, and filters around reviewing your numbers, customer service, talking to a decision maker, or going and finding new customers, because those are your high payoff activities. So right now, write down your high payoff activities. Right now, take a minute to do that around your conference room table. We're going to cover now these high payoff activities in our one-on-ones over the next 2 weeks. And if you want to come in between now and then and you need my help on something, I'm just going to be looking for you to dive me into a conversation like right now around brakes, suspension, radiators, and filters, because that covers our expenses, and our job here is to stay in business and cover those expenses. All right, so anyway, that is just a topic of a sales meeting on how to get people into this column, having conversations on this column, relating to this column, and when they're on a sales call or preparing for a sales call, they're preparing for these right here. I think it might be a way of getting people around selling things you don't have and just making sales calls social events.